For years, I've worn Charles Owen helmets. They're comfortable, they're fashionable, and the company is well known for making high-quality helmets. Now, though I've worn these on almost a daily basis, I haven't given a lot of thought into what goes into building a better helmet. Roy Burek, the man behind the brand, has invited me over to take a look. And there's no better place to learn about it than the Rolex 3-Day in Lexington, Kentucky. Charles Owen manufactures English helmets and vests, and Roy Burek has headed the company for over 25 years. It's a family business that his grandfather started in 1911. What's your inspiration behind continuing this family business?
Well, it's nice to be able to do something where you can make a real difference to people's lives. Every week we get letters from mothers about their daughters who've been involved in accidents and how the helmet has saved their lives. And it just makes the whole job worthwhile. And that really kind of drives us into pursuing this increased safety, better standards and all that sort of thing involved in new technologies.
So did you always know that you wanted to run Charles Owen?
Well, actually, it was funny because throughout my whole education, everyone said, you don't have to try very hard because you're just going to the family business. And so therefore I kind of fought that, and having done a chemistry degree at Oxford, I decided that I would actually pursue a different career in the corporate world. And although I really enjoyed my time there, I actually found that as you went up the management structure, you were able to do less and less direct intervention. And so that was the time when I knew that I wanted to go out and do something where I could really make a difference for people.
Charles Owen has been around for a long time. Tell me a little bit about the history of the company.
Well, it was my grandfather back in 1911 who started the business. We started making military helmets. And in fact, you can still see that on some of the bands people around the world in those white helmets. Or if you go to Barbados, the policemen, we make all their helmets for them. And then it was in 1928 we moved into safety. We started making motorcycle helmets. And we discovered the other day that in 1938 we were actually selling helmets for racing jockeys. So we've been involved in the equestrian industry a long time. Charles Owen also partners with two premium brands in the US, an Italian boot company, a tall boot company called Sergio Grasso, and also Rocol from Germany with their top range gloves. We do a lot of work with handicapped children, right? Because there's so many therapeutical values of having riding in their lives, and sometimes it can be difficult to find a helmet to fit them. So we actually have a team of trained people who can actually help find the perfect fit for whatever the body shape or head shape.
I see that there are a lot of different designs here. Tell me a little bit about the technology behind these different helmets.
Okay, well, when helmets were originally started, they were made from a hard shell, and the idea was that that would actually stop skull fracture. But we've discovered that even though we could stop fracturing the skull, we didn't stop bruising the brain. So there had to be a whole new level of technology come in. And what we do is we incorporate microscopic bubble wrap. You can see on a half helmet we have here, where we've got the styrofoam, and what this is contains millions and millions of little bubbles. And as you land on the ground, you get a stopping distance. So all the bubbles burst, and that actually stops the brain actually smashing itself on the inside of the skull and creating that bruising.
So the premise is that the helmet gets crushed and your head is okay.
Yeah, another way that you can think about it is, if you see some of these stuntmen when they jump off a building, they have a big pile of cardboard boxes. And when the stuntman hits the first cardboard box, he crushes it and slows down a little bit. And as he continues, he breaks the boxes. And what he hopes is the crew have put out enough boxes that he never reaches the ground. And so therefore, the bubbles work in a similar principle. When you land, the bubbles burst, and you want to have it whereby you don't want to run out of bubbles, because that's when the problems start. We actually make them to 3 standards. Now, a question we often get asked is what standard is the best one to wear. Well, you can imagine, get a group of horse people together and to decide and agree on a certain thing, it's a tough call. Get 3 different groups of people, horse people together, and for each of those groups to agree with each other, it's almost impossible. So what we have within each standard is a standard test for a certain set of accidents. So one group might say, we want the helmet to stand against the toughest conditions, against landing on concrete or tarmac. Well, that's the sort of injury that we want to protect against. But then another group will say, yeah, but how often do we actually ride on concrete? You know, we're riding in sand scores, we're riding on soft ground, things like that. And the helmet has to behave quite differently in those situations. So by making a helmet that meets multiple standards means we're covering a much wider range of accident conditions.
So what studies are being done now to build a better helmet?
We're in a really exciting time of actual helmet research. I mean, in the past, helmets were developed using dead people, right? A person that was dead, they would actually crash them into an obstacle and see what sort of damage was done to their brain. So there's some new technology where we can actually have human guinea pigs, right? We actually build a helmet with a little microcomputer inside, right, with 6 accelerometers measuring 3 direct movements and 3 rotational movements of the brain. And as the rider falls to the ground, the computer on board measures each of the sensors 1,000 times a second to give us the forces that go through the helmet into the brain. And of course, now we've got somebody that's alive, we can actually look at concussion, because with a dead person, it was very difficult to identify whether the person was concussed or not. So that's real new technology that we've been working with the University of Dublin on to really start to move the helmets into the next generation. We actually are very involved in standard setting, because standard setting allows all helmets to move forward, not only Charles Owen helmets, but we can actually move the whole environment forward. And it's only by examining accidents. I mean, for example, we're at Rolex, and one of the accidents that we try to protect against is the crush injury, okay, where the horse trips, rotates over, and actually lands on the person. And so there's a huge study going on to try and see what happens where the horse falls and rolls over the person's head, and we can try and work out what sort of testing should be done to try and improve the protection inside helmets.
So I've purchased a helmet. How long until I need to replace and buy a new one?
We normally say around between 3 to 5 years. It really depends on how much you use it. I mean, some people obviously are once-a-week riders, so they're not actually getting as much use out of the helmet. Other people might be riding 10 or 11 horses a day. So it's not so much the helmet starts to deteriorate once it's been manufactured. What we find is that when people start to wear it, the sweat goes into the lining of the helmet and starts to break it down. Now, helmets, right, go up, as you know, in Stetson hat sizes of 1/8 of an inch, okay? Now, that comes from the time when hats were made, where they had a round block that they would make the headband for sizing the hats, okay? So the craftsman would get out his ruler and measure across the block, and he would say, this measures 7 inches across, so I'll call that a 7, I'll call this a 7/1/8, and so that measures 7/1/8 across the helmet, and so we call that 7/1/8. So the difference between a hat size is 1/16 of an inch on this side and 1/16 of an inch on this side, which gives us the 1/8. So you can see that one of the things that happens is we're talking about precision engineering. That's why when you buy a new helmet, you need to have one that is firm, snug, but not tight. It's a bit like buying a new pair of leather shoes. You know, the first day you wear them, it's not when you're going to do your 30-mile hike, right? You need them to actually break and mold to your head. So with a helmet, it's the same. We need it to actually fit closely, because the most dangerous thing about a helmet is when the helmet starts to move. Children actually are quite difficult to fit, okay, because they haven't had the education yet, and so therefore their brains haven't grown to their full size, and you haven't created that bump at the back, which allows the helmet to lock on correctly. Okay, and that's with some of the new helmets that we've developed. We've actually helped to try and tackle that situation to allow helmets to be a lot more stable on the head.
Stability is important. But so is style. Charles Owen works hard to make helmets in a variety of colors and designs to make safety fun. There's the traditional velvet hunt cap, as well as hot pink-inspired helmets with a modern flair. And I found on my visit to Rolex that even some traditionally dressed top dressage riders are choosing helmets as their newest accessory. So Allison, you're riding today.
Yep.
And you came in, you're getting this helmet and fitted in a better way?
Yes, I am. I'm thinking about wearing it in the dressage test today, and it's a beautiful helmet. It fits great, and I see no reason why not to ride in it.
And now the dressage test, so it's traditional to wear the top hat, but you're going to choose to wear the helmet today.
Yep, I feel pretty strongly about wearing helmets, and I love my top hat. It's beautiful, but the only reason why I ride in it is because it's pretty. It doesn't do anything for me safety-wise, so.
And you're getting fitted from the source.
I'm getting fitted from the source.
The Charles Owen.
There you go.
It's important to wear your hair as you will when you're riding. I myself am a fan of the low pony. Okay, Roy, now my hair is back. This is how I normally wear my hair, which is important because we want to fit this to how I'm going to ride on a daily basis.
Absolutely. So let's start off by measuring your head. Okay. So we're going to actually measure the circumference of your head. So now we want to make sure the tape, I'm measuring around the widest part of your head, so it's over the bump at the back. And we're going to look at the size that we need for you. So let's start off with this one. As you can see, it feels, to start with, you get a little bit of a firm feel as we slide it on your head. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and see if I can slide the helmet forward, because that's the most common thing where the helmet slides. So I'm going to try and slide this helmet. Okay, and we can see how this helmet is actually going to become too big and is as you wear it. Some people just get hold of the helmet and just try and move it just there to see if they can move the eyebrows. And you can see with that test, we would have actually passed the helmet and said it was okay. So we need a little bit more of a firmer movement to get it over the thing. So let's try another size down. If you decided that you wanted something a little more formal, right, for that different occasion, and that's the thing about Charles Owen, is we have a helmet for every occasion, is that that you can have the traditional looking velvet cap, okay? Okay, you can see how this actually has a much more traditional look on your head. So this one has a little bit more of an open harness, which is great for the traditional rider. In fact, in Europe at the moment, this is becoming quite a return to fashion. You know, there's the idea of following the space age type helmets and becoming a little more extreme. And of course, you get that whole full circle and people are now coming back to that traditional look. So let's put this on. And so when you try on a new helmet, right, you want to try it on 2 or 3 times, because every time you put it on, the helmet will actually start to mold to the shape of your head. Remember, it's only a 1/16 of an inch that it has to collapse before it actually fits your head correctly, right? And then what we're doing is we're wanting to adjust the harness underneath.
So this is precision fitting.
Precision fitting, right? And there is a little rubber ring, and what that does is that helps to stop micro slippage, because when people talk, they tighten the harness, okay? So we're wanting to have it so you can just about get one finger underneath the chin, all right? Now the next important thing that a lot of people forget about is adjusting the back of the helmet. That is the bit that's actually going to grip the base of your skull and make sure that the helmet is a good fit. Now in this one, we actually have some new technology that's unique to Charles Owen, where we actually use suction cups to grip the base, the corners of your skull. And this helps us to accommodate a much wider range of head shapes.
I think you did a good job.
Good. The helmet is designed to be weaker than your head, so you've got to really be careful about the storage of them. You don't want it whereby the helmet is very sensitive to heat, so don't store it inside a car. where it can get really hot during the hot summer. If it's too hot for you to hold your hand against the surface, then it's too hot for the helmet, right? And also with those bubbles, remember, they can burst. And so therefore you don't want to be putting any heavy weights on top of it. The thing about helmets is it's trying to make sure they're in an airy place, right? When you finished riding, normally you've got some perspiration inside and it's damp. And so therefore you want to make sure that it air dries. And that's the key thing, is don't put it into a sealed bag. Sometimes people, they cushion it up inside a polythene bag, and then of course it starts to actually become very rusty, and you start getting nasty things growing inside. And we do actually make two products that are really helpful in looking after a helmet. The first one is the helmet deodorizer. That actually kills the bacteria that come from the air and feed on the perspiration that goes into the helmet lining. And just by spraying this after every ride means you keep your helmet smelling fresh. Now, obviously, people put sunscreen on and makeup and stuff like that, and that can actually start to make the helmet become quite dirty on the inside. So we do another product, which is the helmet cleaner, and this is designed for the inside lining of the helmet, and it's like a shaving mousse. And this mousse has very little water in it, and that's the whole secret of the formulation, is that the soapy mousse will actually digest all the sunscreen, the makeup. So what you do is you take the soapy mousse and you spread it around side the helmet, which will actually digest the dirt and the grease. And then you get a pale cloth, which is run under the tap to make it damp, and then you actually wipe the inside of the helmet. You know it is clean when the white cloth stops going black. That's the secret. Body protection technology has really moved on. We've got these new flexible materials that really flow around the body. A lot of the people have tried body protection in the past and have found it quite rigid and restrictive. And also they find the body protection moves because it's not hugging the body as you do get with this new technology. And of course, once you wear it, it becomes heat activated and becomes even softer and more clinging to the body.
It molds to the body.
It molds to the body.
Roy, how did these vests come about?
Well, people who were riding, falling to the ground, were actually ending up being winded, or maybe more severely, they would have a burst spleen, burst liver, broken ribs, that sort of stuff. And so that's what body protectors were designed, was to protect the bit of your body that doesn't bend. They're not really back protectors. That was the original misconception, was that they were going to stop spinal injuries. But we find that most of the spinal injuries come from torsion, which is where your shoulders go into a different direction to your hips. And so you twist the spine, and therefore we get that damage. Certainly if you get kicked in the back, you can have the vertebrae on the small of your back, you can get breakages. So a body protector is all about preventing pain. A helmet is all about saving lives. But here with a vest, it's all about pain. And so therefore we start to see people using for jumping, where perhaps they're a little more likely to come off the horse. But also it's really good for nervous riders. If you feel like you're going to fall off your horse, right, then actually having a play mat wrapped around you is a really reassuring feeling.
So it's a confidence builder.
It's a great confidence builder. We see often in lessons and things like that, where perhaps children become nervous because they've actually had a bad fall. And the worst thing is, if you become rigid and stiff on the back of a horse, you lose your balance, and therefore you're more likely to fall. But by actually having a body protector on you, you actually feel that sense of confidence come back to you, because you know it's not going to hurt if you fall on the ground.
So to fit properly, this needs to rest just below the ribs.
Exactly, it just wants to be on those nerve endings.
It's vital that this body protector and the helmet fit properly.
Absolutely. And what we do is that we have a number of stores that go through training and carry a training certificate. And the certificate is issued to the individual member of staff. So it's not a store that gets certified, it's actually an individual member of staff. So if you want to get the best fitting, go and seek out somebody who's been trained in fitting vests and fitting helmets.
Well, I feel pretty secure.
You look great.
If only I had made it into the competition.
Yes. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
Just keep going with the lessons.
I'll just keep trying.